Great. Good evening, everyone. The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And now I hand it over to Jerry.
Hello, and this is our second monthly advisory board meeting via Zoom. And I'm going to do my best to try to introduce everybody on the board who's here. And if I miss anybody, please feel free to speak up and introduce yourself. We have Carl Richardson.
Hello, everybody.
And say where you're from, Carl.
I'm from Brighton.
Great. We have Olivia Richard.
Hi, I'm from Brighton.
We have Ducia, and Ducia, please say your last name.
Hello, this is Ducia Lebovskaya. Thank you, Jerry, very much. I am from Boston, specifically Mission Hill. Thank you.
And we have Juan Carlos.
Hi, everyone. This is Juan Ramirez from Boston in the South End.
We have Kyle Robidoux.
Hi, this is Kyle. I live in Roxbury.
We have Wesley.
Hello, I'm Wesley, Ireland, and I represent the North End. And I do want to let you know, this is not Zoom, we're on Google Meet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Google Meet. My era, sorry. I think Zoom is taking over the world, so. But anyway, who else do we have on the board that's here?
I'm on the phone. It's Paul.
Go ahead, Paul.
Paul Karen. I represent West End, Beacon Hill. I work up at the BPDA.
Great. Anyone else that I'm missing?
I believe that Elizabeth will be on momentarily, but she is not on yet.
Okay. Anybody else, Jessica, that I missed?
I don't believe so.
Anybody else, Jessica?
No, I don't believe so. Oh. I'm muted. Sorry, Carl. I don't know how that happened. No, I don't believe anybody else.
Great. So next on the agenda is the approval of the April minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the April minutes? And if so, do I have a motion to
This
approve?
is Carl. This is Carl. I make a motion to approve.
Any seconds?
I second. It's Paul.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. The motion carries. Next on the agenda is the acknowledgement of it being Mental Health Awareness Month, and the commissioner is going to say a few words about that.
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I wanted to let everybody know that May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think in the times we're going through, it's more important than ever that people pay attention to their mental health and their overall wellness, because we know isolation and fear and anxiety can lead to depression, and, you know, just really tough times can get you down. It can happen to anybody. And we also know that mental health issues are a big part of the disability community. People with mental illness are covered under the ADA, and it's a big sector of the disability community, and we want to offer them our support and just offer a good local resource. If you are interested in more information, a great local resource is called NAMI. It's the National Alliance for Mental Illness, NAMI, and we have a local chapter who we've worked with in the past, and their website is namimass.org, NAMIMASS.org. And you can log in to check out what their resources are, or, you know, if you have a friend who's struggling, it's a great place to refer people. And then even if you just look online, there are tons of resources out there And we know that this meeting, like meetings like these, are not the same as meeting in person, but at least we have technology today where we can see each other, talk to each other, and at least be together in some ways. So that helps a little bit, but just want to put it on the radar for everybody that it's something that we want to pay attention to, and we're paying attention to it too in City Hall. So please reach out to us if you want more information, or if you want any resources or anything, just let us know. So thank you, and that's it, Jerry.
Thank you, Commissioner. That is a very, very, very important. We all have to do whatever we can to try to take care of ourselves and our mental health, during this time. And I know it's extremely difficult. So please avail yourself of NAMI's resources, or reach out to the commissioner and staff, and they might be able to hook you up with some additional resources as well. And next on the agenda, without further ado, we have the City Hall renovation presentation. And I'm not sure who from
Shut all the wings.
I'm not sure who
Kind of had to call you.
from the Public Facilities Department we have. And I think we also have from the architect here. So we're excited for that presentation.
Thanks, Jerry. This is Kate Took. I'm a landscape architect and principal with Sasaki, and I think there are several members of the Public Facilities Department on the line as well, Maureen Anderson and Brian Melia from the Public Facilities Department, as well as several other members from the design team from Sasaki. What we're going to do is we're going to share a screen and a brief presentation with you all. There will be a couple of different speakers as part of that. So I'll be joined by some of my architecture colleagues to talk about some of the improvements to the building. And we'll carry you through all of the information that you need to know about the renovation, and then have plenty of time for questions afterwards.
Great, thank you.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Kate, so sorry to interrupt. Just one quick note. If everybody could please mute their cameras or mute their audio, that would be great. If you're unable to do that, then I have the power to mute you. The trouble with that being that if you are muted by me, I am unable to unmute you, so you will have to unmute yourself. So just be aware. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. Good, so hopefully you can all see the screen. Jessica, can you just confirm for me that everyone can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a brief agenda for you all. Whoops, it's not advancing. There we go. What we're going to do is we're going to share with you all a design overview, the big picture of what's happening with Boston City Hall Plaza and building renovations. And then we'll take a deeper dive into the specific opportunities and challenges around accessibility for both the plaza and the City Hall renovations. So I think you all are quite familiar with City Hall and City Hall Plaza. You know that it's 8 acres of brick as it stands today. And this process was really started in 2015 by the mayor, Mayor Walsh, who stated a vision that the plaza really should be reimagined as a thriving and healthy and innovative space that made Bostonians proud. So that really launched a process which has been several years in the making, starting with a master plan of both the building and the plaza led by Reed Hildebrandt and Util, 2 local design firms. We were brought on, Sasaki was brought on to lead a concept and design process for the first phase of renovations. There have been a number of different opportunities for stakeholders as well as the public to interface with the design throughout the process. We went through a concept refinement process where we looked at many different options, revised those and refined those into phase 1, and are now at the very end of a construction document process and ready to break ground this spring. Again, we've spoken to a number of different stakeholders throughout the process. These are people, constituents from all over Boston, young, old, many different interest groups, including many times meeting with the disability commissioners and staff members. We heard a lot of different things about the plaza, everything from universal access being really important to shade and comfortable seating, What we did as a design team is we took all of that great feedback and we summarized it into 4 guiding principles for the plaza. So a welcoming and civic front yard is really about daily use, ensuring that the plaza can welcome all Bostonians, no matter how they arrive at the plaza, and help them be comfortable for daily use. A flexible and accommodating event venue is about ensuring that the plaza can host a diversity of different kinds of events year-round, 24/7, and really make those events comfortable and welcoming to all Bostonians. A model for sustainability and resilience captures all the feedback we heard about ensuring that this renovation really model the best thinking about 21st century practices in sustainability and resilience. And finally, a renewed cultural and architectural legacy captures all of the great feedback and thinking we heard from the preservation community about how important Government Center is in the history of Boston and what it means as a brutalist building and to reinterpret that civic legacy. So overlaid on top of those guiding principles are a number of really specific elements and principles of program that are required to be accommodated on the plaza. I won't go into this in great detail, but I think it's important to realize over on the left that the city is interested in diversifying the kinds of event spaces on the plaza, ensuring that there are some large spaces and some small spaces for a diversity of events. And then safety and accessibility is a major driver of this process. You all know that there's a really large elevation change across the plaza, and that is accommodated with the number of granite steps currently. And the idea in renovating this plaza is really to ensure that there is universal access to all parts of the plaza and into all main entrances of the building. That's a main driver and priority of the mayor's office. So this here is the full concept plan. I'll just walk you through it carefully. Cambridge Street is high up where the MBTA head house is. Congress Street is low down, about 25 feet in grade difference between those two things. Big picture, what the design is doing is carving an accessible route, a less than 5% sloped walkway, which comes from low down Congress Street up into a right-sized, smaller main plaza. There's an upper plaza, which again is a small gathering place, but doubles as a stage and raised stage area for a large event on the plaza. Along the way, as you come up that sloped walkway, you see a new civic pavilion building, which is an outpost of exciting activities from the City Hall on the plaza. Playscape for all ages, bringing exciting adventures for families to the plaza. And many gardens and places to be and hang out. There's a revised and renewed North Entry courtyard because the North Entry, which has been closed since 9/11, will reopen to the public with new security infrastructure, allowing people to access that lower second floor transaction area of the City Hall more easily from Congress Street. And then coming around to the main entry, there's some revisions to the main entry to ensure that there's a great speaker's corner at the front entry of the building and accessible access, universally accessible access to the main entry as well as up to the 4th floor terrace. The city has prioritized a number of things for the first phase of renovation. So here in color, you see a smaller subset of that larger concept plan, which will be the first phase of renovations that you'll see starting on the plaza very soon. So you can see the city prioritized the updates to universal accessibility all the way through the plaza, carving that accessible route from Congress Street all the way up to Cambridge Street. All of the upgrades to the main plaza and upper plaza, allowing many different kinds of events. The North Entry, the Playscape, and opportunities to host events at a new civic pavilion on the plaza. So big picture, this is the view of the plaza today from across the street. And you can see that 8 acres of brick along with all of those granite stair treads, which really make it a not very accessible and welcoming place currently. The future vision here you can see is a much greener vision, a lot more shady places to sit and be on a daily basis, many places to capture stormwater and let that infiltrate into the soil. You can see that main accessible route carved up from Congress Street right up into a right-sized main plaza, which still hosts the kind of events that Bostonians have come to know and love in the past several years. And then that newly accessible entry, universally accessible entry to the main parts of City Hall. I think I've mentioned universal accessibility many, many times already, and I think as I've said, it's an important priority of the mayor's office and certainly a driver of this design. And when we say universal design, our goal is to bake into every part of this design access for all ages and all abilities, so that no matter how you arrive at the plaza, you can arrive side by side together with your friends and neighbors who may have different needs and different abilities. So we're going to walk through the renovations to the plaza with a lens on accessibility. We'll talk first about how you go through the plaza, what the seating options are. We'll talk specifically about paving and then signage and wayfinding. So this map of the plaza in the blue lines, the solid blue lines, those show accessible routes through the plaza. And again, I think it's just important to realize that the goal here is that the intuitive and quickest routes are always the universally accessible ones. So where there are now stairs blocking your access into the plaza from many parts of Cambridge Street, there's now a welcoming access point. From Congress Street, the same thing, a really welcoming access point. There are main routes to all parts of the plaza that are intuitive and welcoming and universally accessible, the majority of which are less than 5% sloped walkways. We're going to walk through a couple of what those experiences look like. So again, we're going to contrast for you what exists today and what the future is going to look like. Here from Congress Street, you can see that your current view, you're greeted by a wall of inaccessible granite steps. It's nearly 15 feet high. The future view is a much more welcoming gateway where you can see that less than 5% sloped walkway that we call the Hanover Promenade because it aligns with the old Hanover Street, coming right up and leading you into the main part of the plaza, past the newly opened north entry, which is marked by a piece of public art. There's signage, which really announces your welcome to City Hall. And you have this stately civic entrance set off with some planting from a really exciting adventure playscape for children and families. So you'd see and hear that excitement as you came into the plaza. At the second gateway to the plaza, this is up on Cambridge Street, and right now you're separated from the plaza by about 4 feet of granite stair treads. It's really a difficult place to enter the plaza on wheels. The future is a universally accessible access point. You can see that that is a 5% sloped walkway, which really brings you down into the heart of the plaza, and plantings frame the view of that really important west facade of the building and the main entry and point you in that right direction. I think for us, it's also been really important to recognize that the plaza is and should be activated year-round, 24 hours, 24 hours a day, year-round, in all seasons. And so the renovation builds in a number of infrastructure improvements to allow Boston to host the kinds of events that Bostonians love in a much more easy and intuitive and inexpensive way. Moving into the plaza, this is looking down the series of brick terraces separated by granite stair treads that exist along the north side of the building today. So right now, this is again an inaccessible route to those using wheels or pushing strollers. And the future is that less than 5% sloped walkway that we call the Hanover Promenade. It incorporates some of the same original historic structures, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but also has planting slopes on both sides and lots of places that are active and great to be in on a daily basis, activated with public art. Coming down a little further into the plaza, this is a view looking up towards the Government Services Administration building terrace. Again, you can see a large grade difference there. Built into that grade difference in the future will be a really exciting adventure playscape for all ages and abilities. This is designed to be a companion to City Hall. It's what one of our client team members calls kinder brutalism. So the idea is that you reinterpret the brutalist aesthetic of the building and make that fun and playful for the city's youth and families. This playground has been designed to be inclusive, so it provides a number of different opportunities and challenges at different levels to ensure that no matter your age and ability, you have a way to play and a way to engage on the plaza. Coming down just back to the Congress Street, turning a little bit from the view before, this is a MBTA head vent structure that needs to remain. The vision is to tuck a really exciting new piece of program called the Civic Pavilion into that grade change. So just off to the left, off the image, is the playscape that I showed you before. And here is the Civic Pavilion, where meetings like this in an era past COVID might be able to take place in the future. It's a boardroom, as well as a building that has critical infrastructure for the plaza, restrooms, as well as mechanical infrastructure that supports the operation of the plaza. So really fun and exciting place, an outpost of civic activity on the plaza. You can again see that although the building has to be raised up from the level of the sidewalk a little bit because of the MBTA tunnels underneath, there is an intuitive and accessible route which leads you from the sidewalk right up to that main entrance of the building. On top of the building, there's a roof terrace, which is accessible from the GSA terrace beyond and provides a great space for events as well as viewing the city on a daily basis. Seating is integrated throughout the plaza. I think as a design team, we've considered many, many different ways of providing seating that is flexible for people of different ages and abilities. So there are areas of seating that are backless and armless, and there are areas of seating that have arms for folks with limited mobility to be able to push up more easily. And there are numerous opportunities for companion seating throughout the plaza at the edges and integrated throughout seat walls and seating opportunities. So a real diversity of seating that is inclusive and welcoming to people of all abilities. We wanted to pause a little bit and talk specifically about pavement materials and surfacing. We have heard throughout the process that there is significant concern among the disability community about the material of brick as a pavement material in Boston. And so we wanted to tell you the story of brick on the original plaza and why the city is electing to continue that legacy. So this is a sketch from the original architects. And I think they had this really poetic idea and poetic notion about the use of brick, that brick connected the city's sidewalks, the city's historic brick sidewalks, through the plaza. It was a carpet of brick to connect those city sidewalks with the lower public elements of the building. So there was this interesting idea about brick symbolizing public access to city government. And throughout the course of the design process, it's become clear from the preservation community as well as others in Boston that preserving that legacy of brick and connecting the city sidewalks to the lower parts of the building is something that really should be preserved. So the question was really, how do we do that in a way that's accessible? This diagram just shows what that original plaza structure looked like. You can see that the original structure was these series of brick terraces separated by granite stair treads. Those are shown in the darker blue bands. And then you can see the jointing down in the lower right-hand corner really reinforced a fanning pattern in the original plaza structure. What we've done in terms of civic legacy is to look at that structure and update it. So the goal is to honor the original structure and honor the original iconic view sheds of the building, but reinterpret that somewhat, bring it up to date with modern standards of universal access, and allow that legacy to live on, but ensure that we can provide the kinds of spaces that 21st century Bostonians need. So we're preserving view sheds, we're honoring some of the original banding and jointing, and iterating on it where we can and where there's more flexibility in the historic structure. Here you can see the paving palette. This again, we're trying to preserve the integrity of the original materials and build off the best of that in the same way that the recent renovations at the MBTA head house did. So using some of those materials, updating the brick to be a more accessible version of the original materials. So here you can see we're not proposing the old City Hall brick, but instead this is a wire cut brick, which allows for much closer joints. And we can talk a little bit about what that means, as well as the several different colors of granite that are part of the Plaza palette today. So specifically, I think it's important to recognize for us that not all bricks are created equal. What this image is showing is where on the plaza today, the original City Hall brick meets the newer wire cut brick that is associated with the renovations at the MBTA. And so both there are differences in both those brick materials and the installation methods that contribute to whether that material is stable and comfortable to roll over for the long term. There are many in the community that think that if installed correctly, brick can be a really comfortable surface to navigate over. So we wanted to talk specifically about what some of the common issues are with brick and how the design is planning to mitigate those. So we understand that joint size, and particularly the joint sizes on the existing City Hall, are really challenging. Those can be up to 1 inch in depth and are made even worse by the chipping of bricks that exists today. So the solution is a wire cut sand swept butt joint, which can be less than 1/16 of an inch, and really provide a minimum of joint and a minimum of vibration to roll over. We understand that settlement and movement over time are also significant issues with brick in the city of Boston. Varying moisture levels are what cause that heaving, and so the solution is ensuring that we're setting those bricks on a concrete base with weep holes and with edge restraints that ensure that there is minimal movement over time. These are details that have been used at the MBTA. Here you can see some of the issues with brick in terms of chipping. The solution, again, is a high density, low porosity brick. And these are, again, similar to the ones installed at the MBTA project and along Cambridge Street. And differential settlement at areas where brick joins with other material pavements can cause tripping hazards and really significant challenges for those using wheels. And so again, we're proposing haunch details and pinned bases to ensure that that settlement and movement doesn't happen and doesn't occur long term. There's a significant series of success stories within the city and specifically at City Hall Plaza, incorporating these kinds of details with brick into historic patterning. Right on City Hall Plaza, the Washington Mall accessibility project, as well as the renovations at the MBTA. Those details have been installed and withstood many winters of plowing and other snow removal, and not a single one has popped up, and it's still a really universal, smooth, accessible surface. So the city, I think, is very pleased with the performance of this as a material. We've heard several times from the disability community that minimizing the joints is really critical. And so aligning the brick patterning with the direction of travel so that that longitudinal length of the brick is along the direction of travel is really important. And you can see that we've really done that on all of the main paths of travel. The longitudinal direction is the one that you would be traveling against to minimize the joints that you roll over. In terms of wayfinding, I think we have really been thinking hard about the many different ways that people find their way through the plaza. So that includes signage and making sure that signage is accessible, has pavement in front of it, and can be rolled right up to. But it also includes consideration of edging. So you'll notice that most of our main routes, like this one, have granite curbs next to them to ensure that those navigating with canes have an edge restraint that they can navigate against, as well as a visual contrast for others in the low vision community to ensure that they can maintain the direction that they're hoping to maintain. So we're going to dive into City Hall and think specifically about the renovations at the north entry and the west ramp. Start with the outside of the north entry, and then my colleague Nat will take you through some of the improvements on the interior of the north entry. So here is the existing view at the north entry near Congress Street. You can see it's recessed really quite far in to the building, and there hasn't been room here to add the kind of security infrastructure that's needed in order to reopen this entrance to the public. So what the renovation plans to do is really take the facade and subtly move that out to the edge of the brick fins, provide a new entry court that allows people to stay and play and be part of that entrance. And then the security infrastructure is included in that renovated lobby. So it's really an exciting opportunity to open the lower reaches of the building again to the public. In this view, you can see, again, the goal is always to keep all the main access points to the building universally accessible. Since this view was done, there have been some changes in the grading of the site due to constraints with the MBTA tunnels underneath that have required us to raise up the site a little bit. So the entrance will still be universally accessible as shown in that previous rendering, but there are some ramps that are built into that. And what we've again done is tried to ensure that everybody, no matter their age or ability, arrives in the same way. So we're not separating stairs and ramps. We're really ensuring that everybody arrives in that same welcoming way. So Nat, talk to us about the interior.
Sure, Nat Crosby, architect at Sasaki. So from viewing from within, there's an existing ramp that brings you from the second floor entrance level to the second floor mezzanine level that you can see here on the right image. But that ramp, although nominally 1 inch and 12, is irregular in its tile placement, and it is missing a landing to be in keeping with the current code. So the tile here of this ramp will be, and you can see it here in the plan, will be removed, and a new ramp will be installed that extends a little further, that adds a landing. And also we'll be adding handrails to both sides of that ramp to allow easier access up and down that ramp.
In the facade.
The other components that we're changing, and you can see here in the existing plan, is the location of the vestibule and the doors, and that revolving door are kind of between these two piers. In the renovated scheme, that vestibule will move out to be further out of the building, that allows for the security features and kind of a welcoming information desk and turnstiles, similar to the west entry that faces Cambridge Street. So you'll be able to come in through any of these doors and then navigate yourself around. If you're staff at City Hall, you can enter right in through your access card, or move around and get scanned. And then here we can see that kind of lower dashed blue line is the existing ramp, and then that subtle change that happens at the lower level, particularly where we're installing the landing and then lifting up that bottom portion. And then this surface of that ramp will be a concrete surface. It'll be uniform and consistent.
Mm-hmm. And so coming around to the main entrance, this is a view of the existing condition. There are 7 stairs that exist here between the plaza and that 3rd floor main entry, as well as an inaccessible stair ramp that brings you up to the 4th floor terrace. The accessible ramp was added after the original construction of the building and is not, not considered part of the historic legacy of the building. So this diagram again just summarizes what the existing condition is with those inaccessible ramp stairs, which are part of an egress route for the daycare, which is housed within the building, and really need to be updated to an accessible egress, as well as the stairs, which provide 2 separate means of access depending on your ability. So the future is an opportunity for everybody to enter towards the 3rd floor main entrance on a universally accessible, less than 5% sloped walkway, which brings you up to that 3rd floor level, and then continues with an accessible route, which brings you all the way up to that 4th floor terrace, which will hopefully be activated in the future by the city. It's a really magical and majestic part of the building if you haven't been there before. On the way, there's an opportunity to integrate an accessible landing, which we call Speaker's Corner, which is an opportunity for the mayor and other important speaking events to occur right at the front door and the really important west facade of the building. So again, it's an accessible landing for everyone to be welcomed at. You can see that on a daily basis, the entry is universally accessible. Everybody arrives via that same sloped walkway. Lots of places to sit and be with companion seating integrated throughout that Speaker's Corner, and then that accessible route, which brings you up to the 4th floor terrace. And then here, showing the condition where Mayor Walsh or any potential future mayors or other important announcements may occur right there at the front door of City Hall, with the important west facade behind, and the opportunity for that to be a place where anybody can get to and really stand next to the mayor for important city announcements. So we wanted to end just by coming back to these same 4 guiding principles. I think it's important that the plaza be welcoming for everybody, and really incorporate universal access on a daily basis, as well as opportunities for events, modeling sustainability and resilience, and then that renewing the cultural and architectural legacy and updating that for 21st century uses has really been an underpinning of the project. And the result is a reinvigorated civic heart of Boston, which we are excited to begin implementing just in a few months' time. So that's the end of our presentation, and we are really excited to welcome questions from the advisory board and any members of the public that would like to ask us questions at this time.
So just a couple housekeeping things. In order to ask questions, I realized that I didn't cover this at the beginning. In order to ask questions, if you are virtual, if you are online, not via the phone, if you're on video, we ask that you type into the chat that you have a question, and then Jerry, as the board chair, will acknowledge you. There's no particularly clean, nice way of doing that on the phone. So unfortunately, those who are on the phone will simply need to just speak up, and we will work to accommodate people as smoothly as possible. We just ask that one person talk at a time in order for everybody to hear everybody, and in order to ensure that communication is being provided for our sign language interpreters. So Jerry, that leaves you to acknowledge individuals. And Jerry, I believe you're muted currently. In the absence of the ability to hear Jerry.
Oh, sorry. Lucia has a question.
There we
yes.
go.
Thank you, Jerry. Yes, thank you very much, Kate, for your presentation. That was very informative.
You're welcome.
But I am wondering, I was looking at your maps and the pictures, and I have a concern regarding the construction itself. So I did not quite understand when the construction will start. However, I am concerned about what will happen during construction. For instance, as well, we don't really know what the situation will be with the lockdown. But during, let's say June, July, August, hypothetically, when staff people or anybody who's entering the building, what will happen? It will be, I mean, I know that it will be very complicated. It will be difficult for, will people be able to enter the building during the construction, or will there be special way to navigate whether you are disabled or not? I mean, what will be during that situation? Because that's during construction, that's even more inaccessible in a way. So that's my main concern. Thank you.
Lucia, thank you for the question. The city has engaged Shama Design and Construction to manage the construction process, and they have put together a plan looking at when exactly, it's looking at the phasing of construction, as well as when fences go up in various areas, and ensuring that there is signage to direct people to the most expedient routes trying to navigate around the construction site. That said, I can assure you positively that there will be access to the building throughout the entire construction process. Some of the access at the north entry, which is currently closed to the public anyway, will be limited, but the main entry will be staying open throughout most of the construction, and really just impacted towards the end of construction when those improvements that I showed last at Speaker's Corner and the main entry would happen. But there will remain access to the building throughout, from Congress Street, and most of the time from the main entry as well. And the fencing will incorporate signage to direct people around the construction site to ensure that there are still accessible routes around City Hall Plaza during construction to other destinations within the city.
Thank you.
Of course.
And Wesley has a question. Or a couple.
I believe we have a couple of questions before Wesley's.
We do? From who?
I believe it's from Meg Robertson. Is that correct?
Yes,
Great.
I have a
Meg.
couple questions. I can wait, though. Okay. Well, my question is about the brick. There is a whole lot of brick. I thought there would be more of a variety of materials, especially on the universal walkway, that would be more contrasting to the brick rather than everything all the same color. I work for the Commission for the Blind. Also at the Speakers Bureau, one suggestion I would have is around the area that people stand, it would be good to have a different color or different texture kind of roping out where people should stand away from the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there when there's been speakers at the entrance and it blocks the main entrance of people coming in. So it'd be nice to have kind of a define something on the ground to say, oh, this is where I stand to listen to the speaker, as a visual landmark for those people. And my other question would be is where would I didn't see in the designs where the wayfinding signage would be in directing people on what routes to get to the main entrance, to get to the T station at Haymarket or whatnot. Where would those be located on the plaza?
Sure, those are all excellent questions. And the design team has been considering each of those actually. So I'll answer your first question first. In terms of pavement differentiation for the low vision community, the design incorporates pavement bands and jointing within the brick. One of which is what we call a wayfinding band, and it's a larger band within the brick of some different textures within the brick that really continue and lead people from the sidewalk all the way to the main entrance of the building. And those are coupled with the curbing, which is a contrasting material in both color and texture and height, all of which has been incorporated to ensure that the low vision community has guides and wayfinding to the main entrance of the building. Around Speaker's Corner, I think it may not have been obvious in the detailing, but up at the top edge of that, there is actually both a visual differentiation in the contrast between granite and brick, as well as a 4-inch curb that prevents someone from rolling off or inadvertently walking off if they're using a cane. It protects you from that edge. And there are also jointing and banding within the brick patterning, which differentiates the main walking route from areas where you might stand. So hopefully that helps to answer your question. Finally, there is a signage plan, and I recognize that we did not include that tonight, but that is something that the design team is really considering, where signage needs to be and what the messaging needs to be to ensure that people understand that they're arriving at City Hall Plaza, and that the adjacent buildings around them have a different function, and where to find the amenities they're looking for in City Hall Plaza in particular as well.
And Kate, this is Commissioner Krista McCosh.
Thank
Loop
you.
our team in when you get to the wayfinding piece of the planning.
Sure. Yep.
Great.
Okay, next question. I think we are at Wesley at this point. So go ahead with your questions, Wes.
Hello, this is Wes. Thank you so much, Kate and Nate, for your presentation today. I do have 3 questions about 3 different topics. So first, I just have a question related to Congress Street on the Hanover Promenade. So I understand you mentioned something about changing the ramp on that side of the building. Do you mind clarifying that? What do you mean by changing the ramp?
Sure. So right now there's an accessible ramp right adjacent to the building, but that is really pushed to the side of a series of granite steps, which provide a barrier of your access to the plaza. And so the future is, rather than having a separate ramp and then series of stairs, there's one main welcoming access to the plaza where everybody arrives together on a sloped walkway that is less than 5%. So that most intuitive route up into the main part of the plaza is one that everybody arrives at together on one promenade called the Hanover Promenade. I hope that answers your question, Leslie.
Yes, thank you. That does clarify it. And my next question is the Civic Pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a roof terrace.
Mm-hmm.
Will that be, will the boardroom be under that? Under the roof terrace? And also, what's the square footage of that space?
Yes, so I'll defer to Nat on the square footage. There is a roof terrace, and that roof terrace is accessible from the GSA terrace. You can see the GSA terrace is a high up kind of plinth of landscape that sits adjacent to the plaza. So that would be accessible from this main GSA terrace on the roof. And then the lower level is accessible from the sidewalk. And that is where the civic room is. We call it the civic living room. It's a place where meetings like this could happen in the future. Very similar to the size of room 811, I believe it is, at City Hall, where you frequently meet. Nat, can you chime in with the size of that space?
Yeah, it's about 1,200 square feet.
Thank you.
Okay, so that'll fill probably 30 to 40 people, roughly, I'm assuming. And then my next question is, I really enjoyed your presentation and the talk about the green areas. And so I'm just wondering, related to that, how many green areas will you install there for the public?
There are a number of different places to sit and be on a daily basis. The design includes over 100 trees to provide shade for the plaza, as well as numerous areas of planting. The planting is being designed to be relying on native species, but also species that provide visual interest throughout the seasons, and to be low maintenance and durable to city needs and city climate. So many areas of planting, over 100 trees, and many areas to sit on a daily basis. I'll highlight some of those. There's terraces along Cambridge Street. There's a place here adjacent to the GSA building and Cambridge Street we call the Gathering Place, which is a really nice place surrounded by planting to gather on a daily basis. The Arts and Culture terraces here, nestled up to the northwest corner of the building, would be activated with public art on a revolving basis, but are also a great place to sit and be on a daily basis with a water feature that runs through it. And there are terraces also adjacent to the MBTA terraces. So there's an extent of that space as well. The play area has also places to sit and be, as well as the north entry coming around this corner. And both of those are nice shady spots with planting surrounding them as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Great.
I think that's all the questions for me.
Next, we have a question from Olivia.
Yeah, not a question as much as I am so dismayed that we are keeping brick. Even the government center brick, the new brick, is really uncomfortable. Like when you get bumps and stuff, and it can get slippy in the winter. And also the granite, when granite gets wet, it's it doesn't have a very good friction against the wheels of a chair that's lightweight. And most manual chair makers now are lightweight.
Thank you, Olivia. We hear that concern, and I think it's something we take to heart, and we're looking at every way that we can detail brick to ensure that it provides a smooth and comfortable surface over the long term, and to minimize the joints that are necessary to roll over, to minimize their size, to minimize the potential that they might settle and create more discomfort, and to ensure that it remains a smooth and stable surface for the long term. There are a lot of examples of brick installed poorly in the city of Boston, and it's our goal here to ensure that this is the best brick installation that provides a uniform and comfortable surface for the long term. And that has been an important priority of the city to balance the needs of the preservation community and the desire to preserve the historic legacy of the building, while also meeting the needs of the disability community and ensuring that we're detailing brick to make it as comfortable and as easy to navigate as we possibly can. I really appreciate your concern.
Oh, sorry. I just want to add a couple of points to that also, Olivia. We have talked with the design team about the direction of brick so that it will be going the long way in the direction of travel. So that will minimize to some extent the joints. And then we've also talked to the property management and public facilities departments about maintenance. And they've made a commitment to maintain brick because the old plaza suffered from a lack of maintenance, not through anybody's specific fault, but it just, it deteriorated pretty badly. So I know that with all the money they're investing and all the pride that the city has in this design, they've made a real commitment to maintenance. So that's something that we trust them in, and if not, we'll be right on top of them to make sure it gets maintained.
Thank you.
I know Carl has a question.
Yeah, so I too am disappointed that we're using brick, but I want to make sure that are we replacing all the old existing brick with wire cut bricks, so there'll be none of the old brick with multiple joints, or is it going to be a hybrid?
Carl, all the pieces that are part of the phase 1 renovation will have the new wire cut brick. So in that colored map that I showed in the very beginning, any piece that's part of this phase of renovation, which includes most of the north side of the plaza and most of the west side of the plaza, will have the new brick. The south side of the plaza is part of a second phase of renovations and will remain as is until the city begins that second phase of renovations.
The other thing is you keep saying you're doing this because of historic and preservation. I have all kinds of pictures of Scully Square from 1950 that don't have a single brick in them. So the bricks, when they say history and preservation, you're only talking 50, 60. You're not talking that, and I'm almost that age myself, and I don't like to consider myself historic. So that's just something I'll say.
Understood, Carl. The original design intended to connect the city's historic brick sidewalks, some of which may not have been in Scully Square, but were throughout the city, in the North End, the West End, the Beacon Hill, the surrounding parts of the city. But I really appreciate your comments about Scully Square. I didn't know that there was not a lot of brick in that original part of the city.
I just wanted to take a moment, this is Jerry, to also say that I'm disappointed that we're going to be using brick. I can understand the, various historical societies and preservation societies that and neighborhood, organizations that would want it, but it really is, no matter how we dress it up, it is a barrier to for folks with disabilities to access, and it is not definitely not the preferred material to use. So I just wanted to go on record as well and saying I'm disappointed in that. So
Can I add one more comment on that, Jerry?
Sure.
just to follow up, you know, when I saw the design too, I had the same feelings, and you won't meet a stronger advocate for concrete than me. But one thing I will say, in all honesty, is the work that they did on the plaza so far, where the MBTA station is, they have installed a lot of brick and they've done granite, and it really has held up very well, and it's as smooth a surface as I've rolled on. So that does give me hope that if the installation is done well and it's maintained, that I think it will still be very accessible. I know it's not ideal and optimal, but I really do think that with the right, you know, with the right installation, that we can achieve a really good, accessible plaza.
Sure. I appreciate that, Commissioner, and I know you're a great advocate for the community. So I know I appreciate that. So, and we had a question from, and forgive me, the name Zulani. Is that correct?
Yes. So again, yes, I am disappointed about the brick, but I was also wondering about, I mean, obviously we are not going to have any festivals for the most of the year. But is there like a time frame on like how exactly this will be all done? Because a lot of festivals and everything is at City Plaza, unfortunately, and a lot of it within all of the brick and everything seems kind of like between construction and everything, and I don't know when exactly this will be done. So if it is going to be done, how will that look like for future festivals, not including this year?
Sure. The construction process, Dulani, starts this year. So we'll be breaking ground as soon as we are able to, as soon as the city's construction ban is lifted. And that process takes about 18 to 24 months. It's a tremendously technically complex construction because the country's oldest train tunnels sit below this plaza. So there will be a long period of watching that construction happen in terms of the structure of the plaza before the finished materials begin to go on. So 18 to 24 months, which we know is a challenge for the city that is used to holding excellent and exciting and vibrant festivals on the plaza. So the city is working to accommodate those festivals elsewhere for the duration of construction, and then really working to welcome them back because the newly renovated plaza will be actually a much better place to host events and will enable people and community groups from all over the city to pretty easily come and host an event on the plaza. There will be infrastructure built in so that what you can do is what we call plug and play. So it's much more easy. You don't have to bring your own generators and equipment. You would be able to really just plug into infrastructure right there on the plaza and host an event, which makes it a much more accessible option for different kinds of community groups from across the city to host an event. I hope that answers your question.
So Kate, just kind of a follow-up question to that. I know, we're waiting for the reopening to happen to begin construction, but when would from breaking ground to the final phase implementation, how long will the project take? What's the timeline?
As I said, we're looking at 18 to 24 months of construction. Okay. So we can expect the plaza potentially to begin to open by, the end of 2021.
Great. Thank you. I know Kyle had a comment.
Sure. Thank you, Jerry, and thank you to the presenters. I just wanted to add also, my disappointment around the brick, and to me, it seems like you all are prioritizing historic preservation over access and kind of universal access for everyone. So I've also heard a majority of folks say that, brick isn't the preferred choice. So, is there the option of going back to the drawing board and looking at other surfaces that it seems like everyone on this call would agree that there seems to be things that are more accessible than brick? So can you go back and look at other surfaces?
I think, Kyle, we can continue that conversation with the city team and the client team. And there's been as I said, a 2-year process really leading to this point of engaging with stakeholders from all over the city and looking to balance the many, many different interests in Boston's most celebrated and most public civic space. And I think as a design team, we're really looking to work with the city to provide an accessible, durable, long-term solution that still meets the needs of the plaza to be a space that celebrates Boston's civic legacy. And so we're balancing a number of things, and I think we appreciate your concern, and we'll continue that conversation with the city, the mayor's office, and the public facilities department about both maintenance and that material long-term.
May I ask how many outside of precautions
You're breaking up a little bit, Kyle.
department in terms of the design team? Sorry, I'll try again. In addition to Commissioner McCosh and the disability staff, how many folks in the design team or the city team or the public works department are individuals with disabilities that kind of would prioritize accessibility like this?
I can take that question if you'd like.
Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah. So Kyle, as far as people who have a visible, obvious disability, I know there is a project manager in the BPDA who works on the same floor as us, and he is a wheelchair user. And there's no one else that comes to mind. And Jessica can jump in if she thinks of anybody else. But I will say that I know Kate mentioned all the offices that she'll work with, but public facilities really does work very closely with my commission, and we've made all these very clear for the months and months that we've been planning this project. So they know very well what our priorities are and what our concerns are, and I think they just have so many things to balance, so many different interests. But now that they're hearing from you, it's good that they're hearing directly from the community, and design is pretty much done, but we will continue conversations, like Kate said, to see if there's any way at all we can improve it. We certainly will. Jessica, anything to add?
No, Commissioner.
I know Elizabeth had a question.
I know she's on the phone, so it may take her a moment to unmute herself. Elizabeth, it appears that you are still on mute. There we go.
Okay, sorry. All right, sorry, folks. Elizabeth Jean Clower, advisory board member from Back Bay. I'm a public health physician by training, and I think it's more than disappointing. I think that there are really significant potential issues for people in the disability community. That, for one thing, people with mobility issues, it's not only wheelchair users, people who use walkers and canes or have slight balance problems. I served on the Cambridge Disability Commission, and we ran into the same issue of a situation of needing to replace city paver brick with wire cut, which is fine in some settings, but if there's not even any path within this overall plaza that truly is an accessible way to get to the building, which, as Olivia had brought up, minimizes slippage as well as, I think that it's really incumbent on us and the leaders of Spalding Rehab and whatever to wherever, that this is more than just a point of disappointment. And because this hasn't, I'm not saying it's going to go back to the drawing board and the whole surface is going to change, but I think there has to be some kind of compromise that acknowledges the an overriding need for true accessibility that's safe as well as inclusive. And there's the balance too between historic and preservation, and then that we have something like the Zakum Bridge, which is very modern. So again, I'm not trying to throw that in as a, that this idea that what's already 2 years in the making, one, we know it's not going to be back to the drawing board, but there has to be some way to modify it. And between, the public officials, the university officials, they're, Harvard, MIT, etc. There's just got to be some way to somehow modify this before it's fully operational.
Elizabeth, I can just add a little bit of insight into that.
Okay.
One thing that Kate mentioned, but it might not have been emphasized enough, is that they are really eliminating like the majority of slopes. Right now, the plaza is awash in hills and valleys and steep slopes and steps. So all these factors of the leveling of the plaza, eliminating steps, eliminating steep slopes, that all will go a long way towards making it much more accessible, smooth, and also helping with the joints not to pop apart. But I'm not discounting what you're saying about the brick. I just want the whole board to know that I have made all these points very clear to the team, and I'm sure they will all attest to that, because we know that that's the community's desire. But I would encourage people, once this lockdown is over, if you haven't been on the plaza yet, maybe take a ride over and, take a look at the new brick and the new granite. And like I said, I've never been won over before, because we've heard from so many developers, oh, this will be different, this will be different. But really, I'm not sure how long it's been installed, maybe 5 years now.
5 years.
And it really has remained extremely smooth. And I'm saying that in all honesty, that I've been impressed by it. So just putting in there to give you a little insight that this is not something that we're not all aware of. It's really just a matter of trying to balance the issues. And one other point is that the slip friction is something that the team looks very closely at. Could you talk about that at all, Kate?
Sure. Yeah. The bricks that we're using are high density, low porosity brick that does have an anti-slip finish to it, and we can ensure that we are speccing really the best product on the market when it comes to wire cut brick with that non-slip finish on it. These are not old Boston bricks, and I know there are a lot of really bad experiences with bricks throughout the city, but as the commissioner noted, the experience on the plaza with great detailing and high density, low porosity, non-finish brick has been really positive. Over 5 years of messy winters and tough snow removal practices and salt and kind of really all the city can throw at that condition. Those bricks have weathered well, are still a smooth and reliable surface to navigate over.
But Elizabeth, I will commit to debriefing with the team after this meeting, and
Sure.
we can just digest all these comments, and we'll have another comment. So I think we have 2 more comments, if we could get to those.
We do, yeah. I know we have to, move
And
on
then
in
we'll
the
wrap it up,
interest
yep.
of time. But, Eric has a question.
Hello, my name's Eric. I'm a wheelchair user, and I would like to add my voice to the chorus of people who are disappointed in the decision to use brick. I would just like to offer, I have 3 different wheelchairs, and I'm just wondering if everyone who is advocating for brick has had to traverse an area with brick, on a slope or, in winter. I would be more than happy to allow anyone who wants to use any of my 2 power and 1 manual chair to try it for themselves and then come back and tell me that that's a reasonable thing for someone to have to endure on the way to go do something important at City Hall. For example, my partner's immigration process, we had to go there, and it was a bone-rattling experience. It would have been anyway because it's immigration, but this just, it was really, it's scary, frankly. I don't think that people are thinking about the emotions and the sense of humiliation that we experience when, when we're hearing about our interest in not falling out of our mobility devices to an improper surface versus the interest in the preservation, which is really just a way of saying keeping old things old for the sake of keeping them old. It's not, it's a tautological interest. It's not, just because something was done a certain way previously does not mean that it was good, does not mean that we should continue to do it that way. And I think that, I do sense that you folks really are concerned about this. I don't think that you're just feeding us a line. I can see the emotion on your faces that this is not a good outcome. I have never been on any brick, wire cut or otherwise, that was, it's still brick. Even if you run it in the direction of travel, when your wheels, which are different sizes and maybe set at different widths, fit into those grooves, you can find yourself being pulled in a direction that you didn't intend to go. It can cause wear on the motors of a power chair, and it can cause wear on your own body, on your shoulders, as you attempt to, you're trying to push, and then you fall into a groove, and the traction changes up and down, up and down. It's really unpleasant. And again, I would challenge anyone who's advocating for this to try it for themselves. You can use any of my chairs.
Eric? Oh, go ahead. Did you have one more comment?
No, just that, I don't, typically if this was an in-person meeting, we'd have the opportunity to exchange, phone numbers and email addresses and so forth. And I just wonder if there's a way that the people who are, the Preservation Society has their own, advocacy group, I assume, and can contact each other easily. I would be very interested to talk with other people who are concerned about this, because this really is an access issue. There are many public events that I enjoy going to at City Hall, not the least of which is Pride. Pride was completely inaccessible. There were temporary barriers everywhere. The restrooms were up several platform stairs. It was not accessible at all. The ramps were blocked by trash and recycling bins. I saw a crowd of people in wheelchairs on either side trying to get through. So brick is just adding insult to injury, when it comes to that. I would like to talk with other people I don't know how we could do that.
Can I jump in for a minute? So one thing I will say, I know you offered, and you asked, as Kyle asked, like, has anyone with a disability, tried this?
You muted yourself, Commissioner.
Kristen, you're muted.
Plug it in. All right, plug it in. Sorry, I'm trying to get my computer plugged in. Sorry. Anyway, Eric, so what the lens of people who are disabled really comes from my office. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm an appointed official. That's why the property management and public facilities take our input extremely seriously. They know that we represent the community, and believe me, I understand. I've been a wheelchair user for many years, and the old plaza, the existing plaza, is actually a nightmare to get around. I am not discounting that at all. I will say, like I said a few minutes ago, that the installation by the T was done very thoughtfully, very well, with a solid underpinning of whatever layers they do below the brick. And so it is a good installation, and it is actually accessible. So there will be no more steps up to restrooms. There will be no more slopes and temporary barriers. As the design showed, now there will be places for people to go, people to set up. And, it really will be much more accessible. But I'm not discounting anything that you're saying. But what I'd like to do, since this seems to be the consensus, I'd like for you all to email me your thoughts, and then we'll get them together and take them to the group. So you can email us at disability@boston.gov, and we will just make a compilation of all these comments, and we'll review them with the team. And that's something that we will commit to.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you being willing to hear our thoughts. What I'm asking for, that's kind of like a bicycle spoke pattern. I'm looking for something more in the way of a spider web. I'd like to be able to speak with other people to see if we could perhaps add to the brainstorming effort ourselves. I don't know how to arrange that quickly, but it would be good to do that because we're all here now.
I really think that I can take everybody's comments. Like I said, I know these comments very well. I know the feelings. I am a wheelchair user. So email us your comments and we'll do a good job relaying them.
We have one more, time for one more question from Dolores.
So Kristen, are you saying that we can't exchange information and form a working group here, that we have to look down the list of names and Google people? I'd rather not have it be so diffuse. I understand that you're willing to take our comments and I appreciate that, but that's only half of it. I'm interested to use this space and the fact that these are the people, the conscientious citizens who come together out of a concern. I think that we ought to be able to communicate in the future, whether that be on a mailing list or a one-time opt-in thing. I don't think it would be difficult to do.
Well, Eric, would we be able to follow up offline, you and I?
Well, we would lose the opportunity.
Well, I have everyone's contact info, and we have a large mailing list. We're very plugged in with the disability community. So we do know the channels to go through, but just, in terms of the meeting time and agenda, it's been made very clear to people. And so we'll follow up offline. If you can send me your contact info.
Sure.
Thank you.
How do I reach you?
Disability@boston.gov.
Sure.
Is Dolores still available? If she's not, then we can move on. And
I just have a quick question. I was just wondering if there's any kind of a clear sealer that you could put over the bricks that would really hold them in place and stop any movement from them.
Dolores, that's an excellent question. What's going to stop movement of the bricks long term is actually a really good base underneath them.
Yes.
And for the details we showed are setting the bricks on a concrete base with weep holes to ensure that there isn't water getting in there. There isn't an opportunity for those bricks to move up and down long term because they're sitting on a really stable concrete base.
And I realized that you said they're low porous in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
okay, well, thank you very much, Kate, for your time and your team's time and letting us know, see your presentation. And it definitely sounds like we'll, maybe have some ongoing discussions throughout the process. So thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you to everyone involved. We appreciate your comments and we will continue the discussion.
Great. And in the interest of time, the next item on the agenda is my report, and I'll just keep it very brief. I just wanted to commend the commissioner and her staff for their assistance throughout the lockdown. I've heard from various members of the disability community that the Disability Commission has been instrumental in helping with getting PPEs to folks with disabilities and PCAs, and also, helping with some food insecurity. I understand now that the RIDE is working with the city on doing some food delivery types of things, and I just really thank the commissioner and her staff for working on that and for keeping, our concerns, at the forefront during this very difficult time. And with that, we'll move on to the commissioner's report.
Thanks, Jerry. And I won't be long either. So I just wanted to let you know, for the new format for the online meetings, I'm going to take over just doing quick architectural access update and office updates, just so we don't, keep everybody here too long. We know it's a different format and people need to probably move and stretch. So for architectural access updates this month, the only thing we really want to say is that construction is reopening in Boston this week. So we will be paying attention to new projects that are coming through. The construction will be working on sidewalks and streets again and buildings. So we'll be aware of that, and we'll be meeting with all the people who do those things. And then I just wanted to give an update on the reopening plan for the city. So we're in the process of moving from recovery to reopening. And during the recovery phase, the city's priority really was to stabilize everything, make sure people had food, make sure they had housing. The mayor instituted the non-eviction order. And so we really just wanted to stabilize people and keep them safe. So now we're moving on to the phase of reopening, which is starting very slowly. We'll have people and businesses starting to open up with limited capacity. We'll have offices opening up soon. And throughout this time, we will be ensuring that everything the city does is accessible and inclusive. Everything from working with Public Works and BTD to ensure that when restaurants, if they end up using space on the sidewalks, that they'll be accessible, maintain the accessible route. We are looking at initiatives where we can try to buy clear masks, face masks for people so that they can communicate in businesses, and just making sure that virtual meetings are accessible, and everything the city does in this next phase will be accessible to people with disabilities. So Jessica, was there anything I missed with reopening?
I think the only thing that is if you have specific concerns related to the opening, please let us know if there's a specific concern. I know that BCIL and Disability Policy Consortium have been both doing different surveys, kind of asking people's opinion as to where they stand and how they're feeling amidst, I think, week 10 of the shutdown. And we are also getting that feedback. But if you have a specific concern related to reopening a certain industry or situation like that, please let us know, because the commissioner and I are in touch with the reopening team and are and part of the reopening team. And so we'll make sure that those concerns are elevated. Additionally, if you are curious as to the different safety regulations that are being put in place for construction, the city has put together a video that outlines all of the different changes that are being made. So feel free to take a look on the city website, or if you can't find it, let me know.
Thanks, Jessica. And so one thing I wanted to leave everybody with was, I know we're all talking about getting back to normal, and we've heard a lot of people say there'll be a new normal, and we just want to point out that instead of focusing on the word normal, let's take a viewpoint of focusing on the word new. And the mayor has a real commitment to ensuring that everything is equitable and accessible and inclusive as we reopen things, and we can all really, understand how difficult this was, and look to things, hopefully, opening up soon and everybody being safe and getting to the new normal quickly. And that's all I have, except for one other note, a little bit of somewhat good news. The Abilities Expo has announced that they will be having a virtual expo this year. It's going to be June 19th through June 21st. So with that, we can still participate. So we'll get that information out to everybody in the next week or so. And that's all I have.
I know that there was one. Elizabeth has a question, Commissioner. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was unmuted. Actually, Jerry, this is more for you, but also to let people know who might be watching, people in the disability community who might be watching, that although now people who use the ride vehicles have been permitted since the end of April to have PCAs use the vehicles to come to and from the client's house. There are still some problems with schedulers not knowing that that's the current situation, or drivers not knowing. And although through Jerry and I have discussed this and I've filed a complaint, and RTAG will be taking it up, but I would say in the short run, if someone wants to use that service, it is running successfully, but because of this lack of awareness or knowledge that for instance, today when I used it to have a PCA be picked up, they did not have me give her name, even though I had offered to. And so when she was asked, the driver asked her and gave my name instead, she just said yes, which I think as an interim solution until everyone is fully aware that that's allowed is the kind of solution that needs to happen while we continue to pursue it. And in fairness to the schedulers and the drivers, because some of them were either not driving or are working remotely from home, apparently, even though it's been over 3 weeks since that policy was implemented, in 2 days in a row, I've run into problems with staff not knowing that that's the current interim policy. So I just wanted to share that, but that it is actually working.
Yeah, thank you for that, Elizabeth. And as we discussed, offline, anybody that does have a problem like that, follow the same complaint process, and we will, and also being part of RTAG, I will certainly take that to the Office of Transportation Access that runs the ride directly, but please do follow the normal complaint process. And also, if you encounter any flack with scheduling, you can always ask to speak to a supervisor, because again, they have been, a lot of the staff is supposed to have been trained on how to do this, and hopefully it's just a few staff that you've encountered or do encounter that maybe don't know, but ask to speak to a supervisor, and hopefully they'd be able to help you. So do we have any other questions for the commissioner?
Hi, this is Paul. I just have a comment real quick.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, I just want to say kudos to the Walsh administration that we're even having this conversation about the plaza. For years prior to Marty being the mayor, the renovation of the plaza, because I know from being a former mason laborer, was just have a preferred masonry company come in and just throw 50 or 100 brick in here and there, and not even considering what type of brick or what kind of surface is being used to redo this. And this is all with Mayor Walsh's administration moving forward that we're even having this conversation. And I know for a fact that on Joy Street, they do have the type of brick that the architects are talking about, and there's been no complaints with anyone wheelchair accessible. If anyone wants to have a schedule a time, I'll go with them, and we can go up and down the hill on the sidewalk, which goes right into the street. It's right outside the African American Museum, and the brick, there's no seams or joints. You can even, the way they're placed in, it's like being on a sidewalk. And I'm pretty sure that's the type of surface that Chalmette will be implementing on the new City Hall Plaza.
Paul, I want to thank you for those comments, and really that just points out a very important point that I'd like to make, is that that's why we have this board. We want your input, and you all have a different lens that you bring. You all come from different neighborhoods, you have different disabilities, and like Paul was a Mason, so he knows brick.
A laborer for the Masons.
Okay, so I mean, like,
there is a big difference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's very helpful for me to know, and really, I know that you all have a lot of knowledge, lived experience, and you certainly are passionate about these issues. And you know, we want you to have faith in me and in the administration that we are going to do our absolute best to improve accessibility, create accessibility. And Paul is right when he says that Mayor Walsh takes this very seriously. He's given me so much support in implementing so many initiatives to increase accessibility. Like we've told you about before, we now have an accessibility checklist that all projects under the BPDA are starting. They have to go through a pretty rigid checklist before they get approval. So it talks about like where the access is, what the materials are. So we have conversations like this. Patricia, Sarah, and I have conversations like this many times a week with developers, with you know, different people doing projects in Boston. So, you know, please have faith in us that we will we'll get it done. We will make the plaza accessible. And thank you, Paul. And we count on you too.
And thank everybody. Thank you.
Right. We appreciate you and your staff again, Commissioner, and we know that you have the disability community's best interests at heart, and we look forward to being involved in the rest of the process. And we look forward to having a more accessible plaza than what you, as you mentioned, it's a nightmare to get through now. So we look forward to big improvements. I don't think we have any old business. Do we have any new business really quickly?
This is Carl.
Carl, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that tomorrow, May 21st, is Global Accessibility Day. And if you Google that, you'll see a lot of webcasts and seminars and Zoom meetings, all to do with Global Accessibility Day tomorrow.
Great. Any other new business? Any comments or any questions from the public?
Excuse me, Jerry, it's Elizabeth. I do have a question.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Commissioner, is there an update on the status about the masks that have the open, the clear part around the mouth? I know Sherry Blauette had brought that to light, that they're using that at the Brigham. And when Wes had brought that up about for the deaf and hard of hearing community not being able to read lips, I was wondering where, I know that he had followed up with some vendors who supply it, but now that she's also brought that to more attention in medical settings, I was just wondering if there's an update up in that regard.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. So we've had several internal conversations about these masks, and one of the issues right now is that they're hard to source because there's like a back order on them, like all masks, and that we want to preserve them for the medical community because that's critical. But we are looking with partners in other states. I work with disability commissioners from other states across the country, and I know New York and San Francisco actually just emailed me today with a vendor who has a supply of masks. So that's something that we will be doing. As far as the scope and the scale, I can't say right now, but we will at least get some clear masks that we can give out as needed, even if it's just in City Hall. We would like to do it for the broader community, and we're in discussions about that. We do have some funding that we can potentially use for this project. So the only good news is that things will be opening slowly. So hopefully by the time like businesses open, if we're able to acquire the masks, we'll have them. We do have a few weeks to see if we can get any. But that is definitely a priority. It's something that we've prioritized within our cabinet, and we are working actively on as we speak.
Okay, because even if I understand it might not be available to the broader community, but I would think other policemen or people at the MBTA, the people in positions where either of authority or where information, pharmacists or whatever, if there are some settings well, that's still medically related, but if there are some places where a communication level is beyond medical, but not necessarily community-wide.
Yep,
Thank
no,
you.
you're absolutely right. First responders, police, those are all groups that we're looking at to hopefully give a supply, at least to have on hand, even if they don't wear them all the time. And thank you, Wes, very much for raising that. We appreciate it.
Do you have a comment?
Yes. Yes, and I just want to add banks as well. Would be a great place to implement those.
Banks, great. That's definitely noted. Thank you, Wes. I just want to piggyback on the commissioner. I know that everybody has heard this over the last 10 weeks in regards to many different things, but the issue is supply. There are only so many companies that are making these masks, and they are often companies that are serving the entire country, and they are trying to get them as fast as they can to hospitals, to medical staff, to governments, municipal governments, state governments. And so the upside of kind of everybody focusing on PPE is that it is allowing other industries that don't typically make PPE to focus their efforts on PPE. And so we have seen some innovation come from that. I know that I believe it's the Learning Center for the Deaf in Framingham has been given instead face shields for some of their employees through, I think, I believe it's a hockey company. I think it's some sports company.
It was Bauer.
Bauer, there we go. Do they make hockey things? This is showing my...
Yes, they do. They make the best hockey things.
Yes. I'm so glad that I got a thing right. And so there is some innovation that is coming from these things. We're certainly not saying that we're going to invest in face shields to give out to everyone and anyone, because the investment of that would be significantly steep. But it does point to there is innovation and there is hope that these things won't be back ordered forever. But there are only a couple vendors who are doing this kind of work. And there is more and more, for lack of a better word, publicity about these masks. And so the demand is getting higher. And so there continues to be a back order. But we are tracking it, and it is a priority of our office to really get access to these supplies and make sure that they're getting out to the people that need them.
Very well said. Thank you, Jessica.
Great, thank you. And again, we are trying to wrap up, but again, if anybody else has a question or a comment about anything, either that we went over tonight or any other issue that they might be experiencing in the city, feel free. But I don't see anybody on the chat at present.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Any seconds to that motion?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. I thank everybody for their spirited comments, but again, I do have faith in the commissioner and staff that the City Hall Plaza project will, have our best interests at heart, and that we will be allowed, input as it goes on. So thank you, and
thank you.
Everybody keep safe, and most likely we'll have another virtual meeting, but I think tonight went well, so thank you, and everybody be safe.
The next meeting, Commissioner, can you confirm the next meeting date for me? I'm trying to pull it up. We meet on, because I know that Eric, I saw that you commented that you're wondering when the next meeting is. The next meeting will be June 17th. June 17th, 5:30. We will send out, I can confidently say that the next one will be virtual. And so that one will also be virtual, and I will send out the link in our newsletter and our social media. Eric and anybody else on the public, if for some reason you can't get the link or you can't find it, feel free to email the link that's in the chat, which is disability@boston.gov, and we can email you that information directly. It is not always the third Wednesday, it's sometimes the second Wednesday, and sometimes the fourth Wednesday. We compete with a couple other municipal board meetings for different topics, and so we don't always get the same Wednesday.
We compete.
All right, Jerry, now I think we're all set.
Anyway, again, everybody, thank you for all that you're doing. Be safe, and we look forward to connecting with you guys again very soon.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Stay strong.